Welcome to this week's edition of Ask an MS Expert. I'm John Strum, and I'm the host of the Real Talk MS podcast. Each week, Real Talk MS reaches thousands of people in more than 100 countries around the world with the news that people affected by MS need to know. My wife, Jean, lived with progressive MS for 23 years, so I've had a front row seat experiencing all the ways that MS can impact a family. Currently, I'm a member of the International Progressive MS Alliance Scientific Steering Committee. I'm a district activist leader and trustee for the National MS Society, and I chair the Society's California Government Relations Advisory Committee. I want to thank all of you who are joining us on GoToWebinar, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and Twitch. The MS Society's Ask an MS Expert webcast is designed to connect you with MS experts who are ready to answer your questions on the topics that impact people affected by MS every day. So as I chat with our expert today, please feel free to post your questions in the GoToWebinar chat box. We'll try to answer as many of those questions as we can during the Q&A portion of today's program. And the Society's MS navigators are also online throughout today's program, answering questions and connecting you with resources. Wellness is a lifelong journey through which people make positive choices about their behaviors, lifestyle, and activities, choices that help them feel their very best. For people living with multiple sclerosis, incorporating wellness practices into their everyday lives is also a key component of symptom management. Today, we'll talk with Dr. Megan Weigel about different ways to achieve overall well-being by focusing on physical, emotional, spiritual, and social behaviors. Dr. Weigel is a nurse practitioner specializing in neurological care at First Coast Integrative Medicine in Jacksonville Beach, Florida, where she brings a unique integrative medicine and holistic nursing perspective to her practice. Dr. Weigel has been a nurse practitioner for over 20 years and a multiple sclerosis certified nurse since 2005. She's also a board certified advanced practice holistic nurse. And Dr. Weigel is a past president of the International Organization of MS Nurses. She serves on the editorial board of the International Journal of MS Care. And Dr. Weigel is a past member of the Healthcare Advisory Committee for her local National MS Society chapter. Welcome, Dr. Weigel. Thank you for being with us today.
Thanks, John. It's really good to be here.
Practicing wellness is sometimes described as an active process of being aware and making choices that lead toward optimal holistic health and well-being. Dr. Weigel, what are the different dimensions of wellness and how are they connected?
Yeah, so first of all, I'll say that if you look up this topic or Google this topic on the internet, you'll go from anywhere from 6 to 12 dimensions of wellness. And so it can be hard to navigate through them. But the ones that we speak about the most are social, emotional, spiritual, occupational, financial, environmental, and physical domains or dimensions of wellness. And they're very interrelated, and I'll give you a couple of examples about how you can be really strong in one and then lacking in another. So an example would be a person has occupational wellness, which means they have a job, but their intellectual interests or desires have nothing to do with the job that they're doing. And so they might feel like they are not fulfilling their purpose, and then that could affect their emotional wellness domain. Another example is a person who, like in MS, but you look so good, person who looks very physically fit and puts on a really good face, but is actually pretty depressed. So you can have, good scores in some domains and not so good scores in others. And the key is to get them all moving well together.
So speaking of getting them all moving well together, when someone's looking to achieve overall well-being, should they try to focus on all the dimensions at once, or can you work on one at a time?
So I definitely recommend working on one at a time or a couple at a time in small bites. So it's helpful to lay them all out and kind of write down things in each dimension that are working for you and things that aren't, and then choose the thing that is the most important to you or that you feel would bring the most benefit to your life if you had achieved better wellness in that domain, and work on that first. And oftentimes it helps the other things fall into place.
So once someone has selected that domain, that dimension to work on, how do they begin to make changes in their life to try to achieve that optimal holistic health outcome?
I think it's really important to focus on wins. And I talk to people about this a lot in my practice and also to my friends. I don't know about you, John, but I know that I'm sort of struggling with this post pandemic reentry thing, and my life has changed a lot, and so I think about things in terms of wins. Like I can say yesterday, well, these are the wins that I had. And so if something comes up today that's difficult, then I get to focus on yesterday's wins. And so even small wins result in continued change. I also think it's important to give yourself grace. Nutritionists talk a lot about the 80-20 rule. And I think the same is true for setting goals. Like if you set a goal that you're going to exercise every day, well, A, every day might be difficult. And B, that means you've given yourself no grace. Like, what if you're having a bad MS day? What if you're tired? Does that mean you have to punish yourself for not exercising one day? And the answer is no. You set realistic goals that you can achieve in a timely manner, that are manageable, and eventually you'll get to where you need to go.
What type of professionals can help support someone on their wellness journey?
Oh gosh, so many different types. So I think it depends on the domain that you're working on, right? But mental health professionals, I think, are a huge part of a wellness journey just because of the interrelationship of emotional health on all of these other domains. If you don't feel good about yourself or about the way things are going in your life, it's harder to get motivated. Spiritual advisors can help. So some people seek mental help at churches or at synagogues. Some people also see spiritual advisors that aren't related to a religion, and we'll get into more about that later. Rehabilitation therapists, PTs, OTs, speech therapists, exercise specialists, your healthcare providers like me, your MS nurse, your neurologist, your primary care doctor, a life coach, a nutritionist, a financial coach, even college professors can help steer you in the right direction for intellectual and occupational wellness.
Well, I've heard that it takes a village, and I think you've just proven that point.
Yeah, for sure.
Before we continue our discussion, I just want to take a quick moment and welcome those of you who've continued to join us. Please let us know what's on your mind. Type your questions into the question or chat box on GoToWebinar. We'll address as many as we can during the Q&A portion of today's program. And MS navigators are online throughout today's program, answering your questions and connecting you to the very best resources. Our Ask an MS Expert program takes place at this same time every Friday. So please help us make sure that everyone knows about it by sharing news about the webcast with your family and friends and on all your social media channels. Research shows that a healthy diet, exercise, ongoing preventive care, and management of other medical conditions all contribute to overall health and can positively impact both the quality and quantity of your life.
Yeah.
Dr. Weigel, why is good nutrition important for everyone, but especially important for people living with MS?
John, I think this is such a great question because wouldn't it be great if MS was the only thing you had to deal with in your life from a medical standpoint? And nutrition is like gas for your car, so it gives your body the fuel that it needs to function well. But we also know that good nutrition prevents disease. So it prevents and modifies cardiovascular disease. Good nutrition is associated with fewer cancers, even with better mood. And so especially in MS, when we know that vascular conditions increase the rapidity and the likelihood of motor disability, we really want to encourage good nutrition in people living with MS, really because we love for you to just be able to live with MS and really have a great quality of life from that and not have to worry about diabetes and high cholesterol and heart disease and even inflammatory bowel disease and other conditions that could be a result of poor nutrition.
You mentioned that nutrition can even affect our mood. How does our diet affect the way that we feel?
Gosh, I love talking about the connection between the gut and the brain because it used to be kind of like woo woo voodoo weird, and now there's just enough evidence to tell us it's not. So we have a cranial nerve called the vagus nerve, interestingly, and it goes from your brain into your gut. It has a lot of different branches along the way, and messages go back and forth from your brain to your gut and your gut to your brain. These messages come from that nerve specifically. They come from neurotransmitters. They even come from bacteria in the gut. And those messages can actually cause the release of good or bad neurotransmitters in the brain that affect the mood. So the best example I can give is, what's your favorite sweet, right? What's your favorite sweet thing to eat or salty thing to eat? And you put it in your mouth and you chew it, and suddenly if you were sad or stressed, boy, that chocolate made everything better. That's the simplest way to explain the gut brain connection. The best thing that's true about it is that you don't need poor sweet and salty foods to have that connection. The fact is that a well-balanced plant-based diet can help your mood stay stable and good.
So is it important to maintain a certain weight if you have MS?
Gosh, I love this question. So no. There's actually a movement that you can Google, you guys listening, called Health at Every Size. And that movement focuses on the fact that many people, because of genetics or because of difficulty with movement, can't get down to low BMI, but they can eat healthy and move their bodies in such a way that their cardiometabolic markers are good. So their cholesterol is normal. There aren't signs of inflammation in their blood. There is not diabetes. And that's where the focus should be, especially for people who are limited in movement, because our goal here is health. It's not to be skinny.
So what do you consider to be the best diet for someone living with MS?
The one that you follow. Yeah, so there are so many diets for MS. I think there's over like 40 million hits when you put it into like a search tab on Google. Between the Walls Protocol, the Swank diet, the Gold Coast Cure, the keto diet, the McDougall diet, intermittent fasting, the longevity diet, there's so many different ways to eat healthfully with MS. But the fact is, you don't need a gimmick. I love what Michael Pollan says. He says, eat food, not too much, mostly plants. And that does not mean that you have to be a vegetarian. It just means that when you look at your plate, you're going to get the most bang for your buck from a health standpoint if most of what's on your plate comes from the ground. And then you have whole grain, and then you have some clean animal protein or fish that's high in omega-3s. And then you've made good choices.
Well, we've heard from Jackie, who says she's having trouble maintaining a healthy weight, and the diets she tried, they don't seem to stick. What are some tips to help Jackie get back to a healthy weight and keep it off?
My first tip is to tell Jackie to stop dieting and just make a lifestyle change. Just decide that she's going to eat a healthful diet, one that satisfies her. So again, some people hear about the Walls Protocol and they think, well, I don't really want to eat animal protein. I'd rather be a vegetarian, or vice versa. But eating a plant-based diet that's full of whole, real foods doesn't have processed foods, doesn't have sugar sweetened beverages, gives you a little break now and then is the best way to go. Yo-yo dieting actually over years causes your body to think that something's always threatening it, and it can set you up for a lower metabolic rate and things like that. So it's important to just stop that and adapt a lifestyle that makes more sense.
Regular exercise and lifestyle physical activity are beneficial for everyone living with MS and adaptable to all levels of ability. Dr. Weigel, how does lifestyle physical activity and exercise affect our body, mind, and spirit?
Exercise is the cheapest antidepressant. It causes a release of feel-good chemicals in the brain, particularly dopamine. And in fact, exercise in MS has been associated with decreased fatigue. Group exercise in MS, even on virtual platforms, has been associated with decreased feelings of isolation. So it's really great therapy. It's really great therapy.
So when we talk about physical activity, does it have to be rigorous cardiovascular kind of a workout in order to provide benefits?
Yeah, it doesn't. This goes back to that health at every size. So if a person is trying to lose weight and reach a goal because of a certain medical condition, rigorous exercise is going to help them meet that goal faster. However, what we know about people living with MS is there's such a wide array of ability levels, and the important thing is to move your body. So you just choose an activity that you like to do that allows your heart rate to get up into a moderate intensity, and do that as often as you can.
Well, Maggie has written in saying her doctor suggested she develop a daily exercise routine, but she's finding it difficult because she's always so fatigued. How can Maggie exercise when she starts out feeling exhausted?
That's a great question. I think it's important for Maggie to make sure that all the bases have been covered from a medical standpoint and fatigue. So making sure that it's not simply MS fatigue and there's no underlying sleep disorder or vitamin deficiency or thyroid problem. Once those things are ruled out, then we go back to that SMART goal. She wants to have a simple, achievable goal that she can pat herself on the back with every day. And if that is, I'm going to start today with 5 minutes of exercise, just 5 minutes of exercise this daily this week, or 5 days a week this week, and then next week I'll increase that dose of exercise. That would be the way that I would tell her to do it. If she wants to start bigger than that, then I would tell her to break it up and exercise twice a day. So maybe she tries 5 minutes twice a day. That's basically a song. You know, she could move her body to a song twice a day, and there you go. It's just a dance party then.
Well, the National MS Society recommends that people with MS get 150 minutes per week or more of exercise and/or lifestyle physical activity. What are some tips to help people work toward reaching that goal?
So I would definitely recommend exercising at your best time of day, timing your medication so that medications that might make you sleepy aren't being taken, you know, an hour before you're planning on exercising, staying well hydrated, using cooling equipment no matter what, because heat intolerance in MS isn't just from ambient temperature, it's from your core temperature increasing. And then again, like I said with Maggie, breaking up the exercise. So 150 minutes of exercise is essentially 22 point something minutes a day. And you can do that in 2 increments of 11 minutes.
As you mentioned just a couple of moments ago, a lot of people living with MS have other coexisting health conditions. These coexisting conditions are also referred to as comorbidities. What are some common comorbidities that affect people with MS, and what impact do they have on someone's overall health?
I think 2 of the greatest comorbidities that we see in MS are depression and anxiety, and I give those first because we've definitely seen those come to a head in the past year. There's also been more of an initiative to talk about those things that are invisible. In addition to that, vascular comorbidities like overweight, hyperlipidemia or high cholesterol, high blood pressure, pulmonary disease, and GI issues like irritable bowel syndrome or inflammatory bowel disease tend to be more common in people living with MS.
So does having another condition on top of MS make the MS worse?
Yeah, so I think a good way to answer this is, does it make MS feel worse on one hand? So can having another condition make you feel worse on a daily basis, make your symptoms worse? Certainly, and it depends on the condition. But you're just, piling stones on top of other stones. The main thing that we know about other conditions that actually make the disease worse are those vascular comorbidities. And having any vascular comorbidity increases the likelihood of achieving significant mobility issues by 6 years. So that's just one, that's just high blood pressure. But many people have high blood pressure, diabetes, and high cholesterol. And that's why we speak about lifestyle so much, because these things can be preventable.
What are some strategies to lower your risk of developing these comorbidities?
Fortunately, we're talking about all of that today. So following a healthier diet, moving your body, learning how to reduce stress and doing that on a daily basis, focusing on your emotional health, your connections with others, all of these things help your body work at an optimum level instead of fighting against itself.
Emotional well-being is an awareness, understanding, and acceptance of your emotions and your ability to manage them effectively through challenges and change.
Mm-hmm.
This month is Mental Health Awareness Month, so it's both timely and especially important that we address the impact MS can have on emotional health. Does being emotionally well mean you're always happy?
Heck no. I consider myself to be fairly emotionally well on most days, but I am not always happy. And I think that that's an unrealistic expectation. You can practice happiness as a move towards emotional wellness, but really emotional wellness has more to do with being able to ride the waves of change, like you mentioned, seeing positive in situations, being able to evaluate situations, and understand that there may be an outcome that you would consider unfavorable, and then being able to maneuver through that outcome, and identifying the resources you need if you aren't in good emotional health, and then use those resources. To me, that's what emotionally well means.
Well, what are some ways to maintain a positive outlook, especially during tough times?
One of my favorite ways to encourage people to focus on the positive is by keeping a gratitude journal and writing down 3 things a day that you're grateful for. It's actually studied in the literature as one of the best ways to remain positive and to encourage a positive mood. I think it's also helpful to maintain close connections with other people, do positive affirmations. You can put Post-its with nice things about yourself around the house. But certainly, if there are things that you identify that do what I say is sending you down rabbit holes that aren't really great places to go, just stop doing those things. And right now, one of those things for many people is limiting their time on social media and limiting their news watching. And if you are having a really hard time maintaining positivity, then I think it's time to talk to a healthcare provider about it and maybe see a mental health professional.
Stress is part of daily life for everyone, and sometimes stress can feel overwhelming. How does stress affect our mind and body, and what are some strategies to help manage it?
Yeah, so stress, acute stress, right? Like, you know, you're driving and um, you have to move real fast to get out of the way because a car comes into your lane. Your heart starts to beat, your pupils dilate. Acute stress saves us. It protects us from dangerous situations. But when we get into that chronic state of fight or flight, which can happen with chronic stress, then we actually get into our body being in this overly critical state that can cause a low level state of inflammation in the brain. It can cause our hearts to be overworked and cause high blood pressure. It can cause blood vessel changes that lead to other cardiovascular conditions. So it's really important to recognize when chronic stress has taken over. Of course, I will always say that mental health care with the licensed professional is important, but other ways to manage it, again, are things that we're talking about today. So exercise, cheap antidepressant, cheap anti-anxiety medication, mindfulness activities like breathing exercises, meditation, also excellent ways. And then avoiding things like overuse of alcohol, or perhaps there are other crutches that you have to manage stress, are ways to get out from under that chronic stress burden.
Curtis wrote in saying he started feeling better both physically and emotionally after joining a yoga class. Do you think having an outside interest or activity can help people cope with everyday stressors?
Taking the focus off yourself is very, very helpful. And that might be by getting involved in a group. It can also be by being in service to other people. Um, you know, volunteering, helping out other people in your neighborhood. I talked to a woman a few weeks ago who was homebound during the pandemic, and because of her multiple sclerosis therapy, she opted not to go to the grocery store. And so her friends would drop off groceries, and then she would cook like in large amounts, and then she would put out meals. And that was like a great way for her to take her mind off being alone and feeling blue about it. And she was helping other people. So I think definitely.
Many people living with MS have learned that practicing behaviors that promote resilience is the secret to not just coping with MS, but thriving with it. What is resilience and why is it important in our daily lives?
I think resilience is probably just the crux of emotional wellness. It really, by definition, is the ability to bounce back from a tough situation. Again, it's the ability to see positive outcomes, to reframe situations that may not be things that you're looking forward to. And it's if we don't have it, then we tend to become overwhelmed more easily and even give up in the face of health conditions. The things that we can do to improve resilience, again, are the things that we're talking about here, which is pretty interesting, but also not. Makes sense.
Completely. People living with the invisible symptoms of MS are constantly adjusting to the differences between how they feel inside and how the world reacts to them when they look so good, right?
Yeah.
So, how should someone talk about those very real but invisible symptoms of MS that they might be experiencing?
The first thing I'd say is to talk about them sooner rather than later. And by that, I mean many people just by nature try to stuff down. They try to present well, as people say to me, but I present well, so no one really knows how I feel. But what I love to talk to people about is the spoon theory, and you may have heard of it. The spoon theory is basically you imagine your day as starting with a big, a mug of spoons. You've got 10 spoons in there. You need about 4 in the morning to get your kids off to school if you're a woman who has kids to take to school. You need 1 in the afternoon to follow up with phone calls. And then if your kid has a baseball game, you need all of those 5 to go because it's summer. And that means when your husband asks you if you want to meet him for dinner before the baseball game and you say no, it's not because you don't love him or want to spend time with him, it's because all your spoons are gone. And I think that's a helpful visual to explain to other people what invisible symptoms are like.
Spirituality is a powerful aspect of the human experience that can help fuel our efforts to achieve wellness in the face of life's challenges and obstacles. But does spirituality have to be based on religion?
That's a really good question, John, and I think it's a very common misperception, and the answer is no. Spirituality is more of a sense of connection to something that's bigger than yourself. It's also a search for meaning or purpose, and for many people that involves a seeking that follows a religious path, and for others it doesn't at all, and both are okay.
What are some of the benefits of building spirituality into your life?
Spirituality helps people find meaning. It helps them find connection. It helps them find value in positive emotions. And it often helps people find their purpose in a way that they wouldn't have ever thought possible. So I think that spirituality is a big component of reframing something as, boy, that was really bad, into what kind of lesson can I learn from that and how can I use it again to serve me the next time. So spirituality is also, at least for me, that connection provides me with a really huge sense of hope. And I think it does for other people too in the face of adversity.
Is meditation type of spiritual practice? And if it is, what are its benefits?
Yeah, so definitely meditation is a spiritual practice, and the origin of meditation traces back to ancient religions. So for some folks, practicing meditation is a religious experience, but it also does not have to be. It can just be a spiritual one. The practice of meditation has been studied in MS now in small studies, and it's been shown to improve anxiety. It's been shown to improve self-awareness, and also pain. So meditation is a great practice in general to improve emotional health, blood pressure, sleep, and all the other things that I just talked about. Definitely a way that you can calm that sense of chronic stress or that fight or flight from your central nervous system down into more of a peaceful, just a peaceful hum.
From the time each of us is born, relationships help us learn how to interact with others, express ourselves, and be a part of different communities. Developing these positive, healthy relationships helps build support systems and helps us stay mentally and physically healthier. Why is making connections with others such a vital part of our well-being?
Here's a great example of more interrelatedness in those wellness dimensions, because connecting to other people also connects us to something bigger than ourselves. And that sense of connection can make you feel like you're a part of something. You're being supported, but you may also be called on to give support, and to help another human is a really great feeling. There's also improved well-being in connection. So it can't be, it really is, it's indispensable. That's what I'd say, it's indispensable.
So, how can people stay more connected in this virtual world we currently live in?
I mean, we're here, right? I think I'm getting tennis elbow, but it's from Zoom. It's from being on the computer all the time. Um, I encourage people to seek out virtual experiences. I think that if if you're open to it, there really is a sense of connection that's much greater than a person would originally think. If you're nervous about it, then just get on a call like this, or get on a virtual exercise class and observe. Just turn your video and your microphone off. Nobody has to know. And when you're comfortable, you can jump in. Um, You can also gather outside, maintain social distancing, meet friends and family outside. Um, Many people feel more comfortable meeting with others once they're vaccinated. So there are lots of ways to get together now. I think this conversation a year ago would have been a completely different one.
Well, we've heard from Robin, and Robin considers herself an introvert. She's uncomfortable reaching out to others. What are some ways for Robin to step out of her comfort zone and start to build her social network?
So Robin would be a perfect person to come to a Zoom meeting and just observe. And if she wasn't comfortable turning on her video, she wouldn't have to. We see that a lot in some of the virtual programming that we do with the MS Society and Can Do, and even with my yoga. Often people leave their video off and they're just say, "Hey, I'm here to watch for the first time and see if I like it." I'd also encourage her to maybe go on a virtual outing with a friend. So maybe she has a friend who's enjoying some sort of virtual programming, and they can meet there together on online in the boxes. But just taking that first step and getting out and knowing that most people like Robin had a first time too. With a virtual experience is helpful, and those connections are. I've heard of some really cool friendships happening this year.
Tony wrote in saying his wife lives with MS, and lately he feels more like a caregiver than a partner. He wants to know how to get that balance back and feel close to his wife again.
So I'd say three things for Tony. One is that it's very important that he makes sure he's taking care of his own health. And by that, I mean he's, seeing his doctors as he needs to, that he's participating in self-care and maintaining his own social connections so that he has time away from his um, support that his wife needs. I would also say that he and his wife come together and um, develop a plan for doing some activities that have nothing to do with MS, right? So just let's plan to have a date, or let's plan to go to a park or something like that. And they take the support part out of it and they bring the relationship back in. And then the third thing is I would encourage him to seek out programming for support partners, and the National MS Society and Can Do MS have wonderful programs for support partners that he can jump in and learn from.
The category called Complementary and Alternative Medicine includes a wide variety of interventions which come from many different disciplines and traditions. Most are considered to be outside the realm of conventional medicine, although others are establishing their role in comprehensive care through scientific study. Dr. Weigel, what are some different complementary and alternative medicine therapies that you use in your practice, and how are they different from conventional medicine?
My practice has a heavy focus on mind, body, and spirit. So I really give a platform for a person to tell me their literally their life story. And from there, we develop a plan that supports them. And that plan might include some nutritional changes. That plan might include supplements or botanicals if I felt that they're safe or they have evidence to treat some problems the person is having. I also use acupressure and biofeedback to help with painful symptoms, anxiety, depression, mood issues, fatigue, and really within that focus on an evidence-based platform of things that we know help people living with MS.
And that brings me to my very next question. Are complementary and alternative medicine therapies safe and effective for people living with MS?
It really depends on what you're talking about. So we know very, very little about how supplements work, A, in MS, and B, with disease modifying therapies. We know quite a bit actually about how supplements and botanicals work with medication, say symptomatic medications from a pharmacological standpoint. Supplements and botanicals are actually metabolized along the same pathways as some of those medicines. We know that many supplements, for example, are theoretically thought to worsen or theoretically could worsen MS as they stimulate the immune system. We have an immune system that's not working right, so we really don't want to stimulate it. But then there are other CAM therapies, manual therapies like massage, acupuncture, biofeedback, acupressure, different types of energy medicine like Reiki that may be helpful for symptoms with MS. And there's a great, I call it the Bible. It's Dr. Alan Bowling's book, Optimal Health in MS. And he's really devoted his life's work to listing the evidence for the complementary and alternative medicines that are out there for MS. So I'd encourage people to take a peek at that book.
Well, we've heard from Simone, who wants to try acupuncture to relieve some of her pain. And we've also heard from Jay, who's considering massage therapy for his spasticity. Now, are there things to consider before using complementary and alternative medicine therapies? And is it important to discuss using complementary and alternative medicine therapies with your healthcare provider first?
Certainly. So the first thing to consider is there any known benefit? And if there is, does that benefit outweigh any risk? And that risk, I also consider financial harm to be a risk. So there might be, a guy on YouTube that says X cured him of his disease and it costs $15,000. That's probably not the right decision to make. If there's a large body of evidence that that supports the risk of the therapy, probably not a wise decision to make. But for things like you mentioned, massage and acupuncture, the things that are important to consider are that you're seeing a licensed and certified professional in those areas, and the way those people are licensed and certified differ from state to state. I would always talk to your healthcare provider first before trying something that's complementary and alternative. That healthcare provider might surprise you and make a really good recommendation, because he or she's aligned himself with people in the community. So I think it's very important to take that step first. We do know that most people don't talk to their conventional providers about the woo-woo stuff they're doing. And it would be really great if we could just open that door and all be working together.
Speaking of which, is there an optimal health plan that combines both complementary and alternative medicine therapies with traditional MS treatment?
Yeah, I call it integrative medicine, and that's the way I practice. So there are so many different types of holistic medicine. There's functional medicine, integrative medicine, lifestyle medicine, holistic medicine. The list goes on and on. The way that integrative medicine providers are trained is to provide the best care plan that comes from both worlds, that is the least toxic, the least costly, and supports the person on all of these dimensions of wellness the most. So when a person comes to me, I talk to them about disease modifying therapy, and I talk to them about medications available to modify their symptoms. And then I talk to them about things that they could change in their daily lives that may also help modify their symptoms if they don't want to take more medication. So that's, to me, the best of both worlds. The problem is it takes a lot of time.
You've shared some really important and helpful insights with us today. What would you say are the top 3 takeaways that you'd like our audience to remember?
Yeah, so this was hard to think about, but the biggest one that I'd like to convey is life is hard enough. Don't make it harder. I think I mentioned this early on. Take small bites. If you use the SMART goal acronym, so it's small, achievable, manageable, realistic, timely goals. Or simple, not small. But if it's a diet, instead of saying I'm never going to eat a cookie again, Why don't you say, I'm going to incorporate greens with my lunch and dinner 5 days out of the week? You're much more likely to win. So don't make life harder. The second one is try setting an alarm for 1 or 2 minutes a day and just deep breathe. Super simple. And the third one is engage your family and friends in an activity, in a wellness activity, so that you guys are supporting each other.
Well, thank you for sharing your expertise with us. Let's continue taking more of the questions that our audience has for you. Eli wrote in and asked if MS can be managed with alternative therapies instead of typical drug treatments.
That's a great question, Eli, and it's one that is asked quite frequently. And the answer is that we don't have evidence to suggest that alternative therapies modify the disease. We do have evidence that certain things ameliorate symptoms, like certain nutritional changes do. Types of complementary and alternative therapies, particularly manual therapies, can improve MS symptoms. But as of right now, there's not any evidence that tells us we can substitute CAM for a disease-modifying therapy.
Krupa wants to know more about how vitamin B12 deficiency impacts MS and if B12 is recommended as a supplement.
That's also a great question because symptoms of B12 deficiency can actually mimic symptoms of MS. And if you're severely B12 deficient for a long period of time, you can actually have lesions in the brain and spinal cord. But just minimal B12 deficiency can cause fatigue, mood issues, cognitive issues, paresthesias, and neuropathy. Before I recommend taking a supplement, because a lot of people take enough things, I strongly recommend having your B12 level checked. Just ask your healthcare provider to do it with your next blood draw. It's pretty easy.
Dana was recently diagnosed with MS. She's feeling very isolated and sad. Are there things that Dana can be doing to bring more joy into her everyday life?
Yeah, the first thing that I would do is encourage Dana to stay connected to loved ones and also to consider reaching out to a person who has MS, and she can do that through the MS Navigator program with the National MS Society. She can get peer support. Adjustment to the unknowns of the diagnosis is really difficult, and because of that, I encourage almost every person who's newly diagnosed to consider counseling. It would be great for Dana to learn those tools of the road before she actually runs off the road.
Jason says he's experiencing a lot of emotional ups and downs. He doesn't know how to control them. He's wondering if this is a symptom of MS and whether it can be managed without medication.
I would have Jason talk to his healthcare provider about this. There are some very simple screening tools that can be done in the office in just a matter of minutes to determine whether this is something like pseudobulbar affect, which is a symptom of MS, or whether it's a mental health disorder. And then depending on that, it could be managed without medication. A referral for cognitive behavioral therapy could be helpful. But I think some screening tests would help Jason a lot.
And Brenda wants to know if there are vitamins and minerals that can decrease muscle aches and fatigue and enable more activity.
The first question I'd ask Brenda is if she's drinking enough water. Water is a great substance that has minerals in it that can help with fatigue and muscle aches and pains. Aside from that, things like calcium, magnesium, and potassium can help, but I usually don't recommend just blindly taking those as supplements. Those are also things that can easily be checked in a metabolic panel and with a magnesium level. So I would encourage her to check with her healthcare provider about that, because its toxicities are easy to happen when supplementing.
Leah experiences a lot of anxiety, and she's wondering if meditation will help to manage the anxiety, but she doesn't know where to begin. Leah's wondering whether an app-based program is a good way to get started.
I think app-based programs are great. It has to be said that if her anxiety is causing an inability for her to function, then that's probably not the best place for her to start. In that case, her healthcare provider would be the best place. But many apps during the pandemic have either reduced their cost or made themselves free. In particular, I like the apps Calm, Oak, and Insight Timer, and they all offer themed and guided meditation. So you can just kind of go in and search for what you want and then take a listen.
Alexa experiences restless leg syndrome, and it's affecting her sleep at night. She wakes up feeling tired every morning. Are there any strategies to help her get a good night's sleep so Alexa feels energized in the morning?
Certainly. So, a good workup for restless leg syndrome includes ruling out diabetes, kidney issues, vitamin deficiencies, and iron deficiencies. And if that's been done, then optimizing medication for restless leg is really key. It can certainly help improve sleep. It may also be helpful for Alexa to keep a journal. Typically, what I ask people about with restless leg is level of activity, level of hydration, and foods. And sometimes, like with headache, people are able to identify triggers, lifestyle triggers that worsen their restless legs, and then she could remove those.
Pam has noticed her executive function skills have declined in the last year. She wants to know whether there are activities she can engage in to help increase those skills, or will they just keep getting worse?
Really great question. Depending on what Pam has done in her MS journey, I would encourage her to have at least a cognitive screen at her MS healthcare provider's office. And the gold standard right now is the symbol digit modalities test, which can actually be done electronically and or with paper and pencil, and also consider formal neuropsychometric testing. And this type of testing can give Pam an idea of how she's functioning now and then how she's functioning later if this stuff is followed. But activities that support brain health and cognitive health, John, guess what? They're all the things that we talked about today. So following a healthy diet, moving your body, managing stress, sleeping well, staying socially connected, and then learning new things, playing brain games, all of those things can certainly help with cognition.
Well, I want to thank all of you who've submitted your questions, and thank you, Dr. Weigel, for being with us today.
Thanks, John. I appreciate it.
I think that one of the best things that anyone can do for themselves, especially during these uncertain times, is to make sure that the information they're getting is credible and reliable. So we'd like to share some resources with you. And these are resources that you can count on to be current and credible. To learn more about how a healthy diet, regular exercise, stress management, and other wellness strategies can help you manage your symptoms and feel your best, please visit the National MS Society's website at nationalmssociety.org/livingwellwithms. I want to remind you that the National MS Society's MS Navigator team is your best partner when it comes to connecting you to the very best information and resources on living well with MS. You can reach an MS Navigator by phone, email, or through the Society's website by chat. And I'll also remind you that the MS Society brings people together through peer connection programs like self-help groups, the MS Friends Helpline and Paired program, and the National MS Society Facebook community. To learn more, please visit the Society's website at nationalmssociety.org/connections programs. If you have a young person at home who's living with MS, I hope you'll share this new connection opportunity at our virtual MS Adventure Camp program. MS Adventure Camp offers monthly educational content and the opportunity to connect with other teens between the ages of 13 and 17 who understand the impact of MS. The next program will take place on May 18th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time and will focus on MS and my family, talking about MS. To register and learn more, visit nationalmssociety.org/camp. Every week on the Real Talk MS podcast, I continue the conversation that we start here. So I hope you'll take a few minutes and give Real Talk MS a listen. You'll find the Real Talk MS podcast at realtalkms.com, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you find your favorite podcast. Walk MS 2021 is coming, and this year, Walk MS will meet you where you are to connect, celebrate, and make a difference like never before. For more information, please visit walkms.org. And I'd like to thank Dr. Megan Weigel for joining us today. Please remember that a recording of this webinar is going to be available at the Society's website at nationalmssociety.org/MSExpert, as well as on Facebook and YouTube. I hope you'll join us for next Friday's edition of Ask an MS Expert, where we're going to be talking about managing depression and anxiety in MS with Dr. Anthony Feinstein. Now I have a favor to ask each of you. Getting your feedback on today's webinar is important. So you'll see a survey pop up in a moment when we close out the webinar. And if you're watching on Facebook Live, you'll see a link to that survey pinned to the comments section. And on YouTube, you'll find that link in the program description. Completing the survey makes a real difference. The information you provide helps us continuously improve, and it helps shape future webinars. The survey takes just 1 minute, so I hope you'll take a minute and fill it out. On behalf of Dr. Megan Weigel and the National MS Society, I want to thank you once again for joining us. Please stay safe and make healthy choices.